Grandmother, you're all I ever wanted to uphold. Now I would never...
Welcome. This is Beyond the Here and Now. I'm your host, Antonia Lau, and this is the show that will take you a moment to wrap your heads around new thought, new thinking, new ideologies than you've been taught to think and to believe about yourself, the world around you, and your place in it. Today's topic, we're going to talk about the alien influence in the cosmos and on our Earth. Now, I don't want you to turn off the show because you heard the word alien. You might want to turn it up, because it's amazing on the planet today with the education that we have and all the sciences we've so-called developed at this point in history, that we still lie so Earth-centric, so to speak. We unfortunately still believe that we must be the latest, greatest, best. And that's incorrect. It always has been incorrect. You see, Earth has been around for, 4.5 billion years? And that's just a tiny, teeny speck of the cosmos. In fact, a tiny, teeny speck of our entire solar system in the Milky Way. And if you're not aware, scientists have clocked at least 99,000 other universes, not galaxies, other universes containing many, many galaxies. So you have to understand and now expand that thinking that you are not the only being in the entire world. And this is what Creator, or God Creator, Source, Force, whatever you prefer, has allowed for this option of these multi-universes in this lifetime for you to experience. So this is important. You have to note that those things you see on CNN or Fox or your local news channel have always been remiss in parts of what's been happening in our governments, across the planet, across the world, in people's lives, covertly, unabashedly held back from the public for years, for hundreds of centuries, in fact. So you wonder, how could this particular thing happen? Why could we only just now be hearing about these things? Because our awareness is increasing, bit by bit, as we are continuing to evolve. We're starting to realize there's more than news, weather, and sports in the world. We're starting to focus outside of ourselves. We're starting to be less selfish. We're starting to focus beyond. So in that, I want you to understand, it is not my practice, as you know. I'm a hard and fast skeptic. It is not my practice to present to you theory or conjecture. I study, I research deeply, about 5 years usually, before I'll open my mouth on the air, especially, about a topic or a subject. Because humans are tied into misconception, and that's the mess we're in today. All the misconception about every area of our life. All these issues we face today, societally, governmentally, personally, are all due to these missteps or this misinformation or misdirection that we've been getting. So my whole point of the show, you have to understand, has always been to help you to see that there's more beyond that we need to recognize or realize. Now, I don't just talk about hearsay. These are things most of us, or many of us, have seen those glimpses through the sky throughout our life. I know personally I have, seen them traveling through. And I never had the urge to travel, on board. That was not my urge. I just knew and sensed that it was of a much higher intelligence than we were. And my hope was that it always be of a divine or of a highly benevolent phase, that I wanted information that would help me to be of better service with my lifetime or throughout my lifetime. And even as a young teenager, through my early adulthood, my whole process was, I just want the information. Just teach me what I need to know to help my own sisters and brothers on the planet, my own human beings. Help us to grow and evolve. And I've had some of those fifth encounters, they call it close encounters of the fifth kind, that I did not plan, that I did not, expect. And I did not realize that a friend of mine had had some personal experiences all his entire life. Out in Victorville, California, a little desert town, his family, apparently, he found out after many of his experiences, had been visited over 3 generations. And when he was telling me this information and had another experience, I said, now, is it a light that you saw from a light pole that exploded? Is it I try to do all those wonderful things to negate it? Because there's so much, again, misinformation out there, even though I knew that this exists. But within a week of his telling me about the latest experience, I had my own personal encounters in my own home, not just one, but several. At that time, I checked with a few professionals to see what was going on exactly. I looked and did my own research from that point in time, and again strove to make sure that it was always of a benevolent connection. So I've had my share of the scaries, and I've had the ones that are the most loving and benevolent I've ever experienced in my life. So, in essence, I don't talk about this often, because most people don't have a clue or don't understand what I'm speaking of. But I want you to understand this is a part of your world now. And as it encroaches more, as you're becoming more aware, you need to be concerned about how you view it, to not fall into a state of denial or fear, to always focus on your evolution, your higher awareness, your understanding, to take in the information, especially from what I might offer you, or where you're guided in a discerning manner to receive the information. But it's time to wake up. You've got to understand. There's more out there. I remember hearing one researcher that had worked under covert government areas talk or discuss that the government itself had clocked some 1,700 plus different beings that they were aware of but weren't going to report to the public. I remember a few years back when Britain decided that they were going to apologize for hiding their Project Blue Book or Blue Book projects, and they came right across the air and said, "We're very sorry. These events happen," redeeming all those thousands of witnesses that they said nothing existed or that it was their imagination for many, many years. Most countries have done so, and they've disclosed. Mexico, several other countries around the world, their governments have stated this exists. But I watched the trend in the movies in the United States, and all of a sudden it was with, E.T., and it was just the brightest, most benevolent feeling. And then it became more heinous, and yes, we have to be aware. They're all sides to the universe. And then it became, again, benevolent for a reason. We saw them as wonderful. And right now, they're our worst lethal enemy. So I want you to understand, just like on the planet, most of the population is genuine. Most of the population is, for the most part, positive. But yes, in our own planet, we have various degrees of intense, negative people, beings, right here in our own human beings. So you have to understand the universe works that same way. Even though they have the technological evolution and emotional evolution, spiritual evolution, some of them have forgotten their divine source or creator as well as some of us here on the planet. So it's important that in that discernment, again, there is no fear, but an open awareness to understand what's going on around you. As we and Earth herself progress coming ahead through some very drastic changes for not only us, mentally, spiritually, and physically, but Earth herself in those 3 manners as well. It's time to grow. It's time to wake up. It's time to be aware. This is Beyond the Here and Now. I'm your host, Antonia Lau, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Indy 100 Burbank. Why is crime out of control in LA?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Because they don't have the Burbank police. Hats off to our hardworking men and women of law enforcement. Okay, guys, you can stop running that radar gun when I get off work.
20 years ago, the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law. It helped renew the promise that here in America, we're defined not by our limitations, but by our potential. As we celebrate the 20th anniversary of this historic legislation, it's important to remember that we're still fulfilling that promise. We've come a long way since 1990, and I'm committed to making even more progress in the years ahead. Visit disability.gov to see how you can help.
Brought to you by the American Association of People with Disabilities and the Ad Council.
If you're a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan, like me, coming home can be harder than expected. But it turns out I wasn't alone. At IAVA.org, there's a free online community of thousands of vets who've got your back. Whether it's managing the transition home or everyday stuff like finding a nice sweater for my dog.
Sweater?
Okay, maybe not that. Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America is there for you. Join our community at IAVA.org.
We got your back.
Brought to you by IAVA and the Ad Council.
Indy 100.
And welcome back. This is, of course, Beyond the Here and Now. I'm your host, Antonia Lau. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about the alien influence on Earth as well as the cosmos. And I'm very honored and very happy to present my online guest today, Linda Moulton Howe. Linda, how are you today?
Well, thank you for having me on a very important and relevant topic, which is this planet has had what government people call non-human intelligences interacting with it for millennia. And as an investigative reporter who did my work in science, medicine, and the environment at Stanford University in terms of documentaries and journalism, it has been my own evolution trying to get to the bottom of Earth mysteries that has taken me face to face with people working in our government in the United States who have said, yes, of course, we know all about extraterrestrial biological entities interacting with this planet, but the world isn't ready for it, and therefore we have to continue these policies of denial. And there you have the disconnect between the reality of other life in the universe and living on a concocted planet, as we are now, that has been controlled by a kind of 1% power greed for literally for centuries.
Yes.
And today, something is coming apart in the social, economic, political, geopolitical, territorial fabric of this planet.
Yes.
And I personally can't help but wonder if there is something about the evolution of the 21st century that is almost like a time-release capsule, that we humans were kept in a state of dumbness, blindness, and not even being allowed to understand that we were not alone in the universe, and that something perhaps outside of humanity, perhaps in the divine field, is actually pushing now on this planet because there have been way too many lies and too many controllers that have kept humanity from understanding the truth.
As I understand it, through my research, basically we're going through this evolutionary gestation, so to speak. So humankind is evolving where they haven't in as you said, millennia, to a higher level of awareness or understanding. Earth herself is going back to another vibratory rate. And this is not hearsay again. This is something I've worked through with a lot of research and confirmation. And so what I noticed was, as you stated, now for my audience that is not aware, you've won Emmys, you've got Peabody Awards, a ton of awards, a long list. You're recognizable through every conference in the world on the topic, as well as on TV with Ancient Americans and the Discovery Channel. So you've done your homework. You've done your homework. So what I noticed was this gestation is calling for it, and it appears, Linda, it appears that part of the governments have been in cahoots with the rest of the universe that would not want us, or the rest of the multi-universes, that would not want us to evolve.
Well, it's a very good question about agendas. I have walked this difficult path now since September of '79, that's 35 years ago. I was director of special projects at the CBS station in Denver, Colorado, and my job was to produce documentaries, live studio programs, and news segments throughout each year having to do with subjects that affected the state of Colorado and the surrounding region. And that is why in September of '79, after another increase in the unusual bloodless, trackless animal deaths that were affecting Colorado, all of the surrounding states in the West,
Yes.
Canada,
Yes.
that I thought that I was getting into an environmental contamination story, and that it was as shocked to me as much as Alice in Wonderland going through the mirror, that in the very first interview that I did with a sheriff up in northeastern Colorado, Sheriff Tech Graves, that after spending several hours looking at his offense reports about mutilations and looking at 266 color Polaroids of these animals, no blood and no tracks, but the same pattern of excision,
Yes.
and he looked at me and said, "Linda, I'll save you some time. I know that the perpetrators are creatures from outer space." And the reason why I'm stressing that as the beginning of my own introduction to We're Not Alone in the Universe, that most of the world is repulsed by, terrified of the animal mutilation phenomenon. But in the 35 years that took me to 1,000 other paths related to animal mutilations, when I finally did my first of 4 books, the huge 8.5 by 11 in Alien Harvest, which has just come out in a brand new second edition,
Excellent.
with updates and all kinds of important updates over the last 35 years.
Please say the name of the book again.
It's an Alien Harvest. And anyone listening can see it and order it from my news website, earthfiles.com. It's always there in the Earth Files shop, and you can get there from the headlines page. And in that book, I tried, after 10 years of the first third of this life path that I went trying to understand what was happening.
Yes.
In that book, I tried to lay out the possibilities of why extraterrestrial biological entities from someplace else in the universe would be focused on this planet and would be focused on the animal mutilations of every animal you can think of, every domestic animal, every wild animal, not humans to the best of my knowledge. There is a distinction made. And that in that all of that work that I had done in the first decade that took me often crossing paths with people working in government intelligence and military, I tried to say that I think there are 2 main categories for the animal mutilation: sustenance in special proteins. The second is genetic manipulation in the creation of hybrids and clones. Now, does that necessarily mean that the non-humans focused on Earth are evil or have agendas of something that would try to destroy humanity? My personal feeling after 35 years is the answer is no.
Correct.
That I think that behind a lot of what has been occurring for thousands of years is a issue of survival.
Yes.
And that we are dealing with non-humans who have their own problems of survival.
Yes.
And that if we understood everything, we might actually, if we were told the truth,
Yes.
we might actually, as humans, feel a certain level of compassion for other life that in its own way may be desperately trying to survive and keep its own bloodline going, and that there is a link to the manipulation of DNA on this particular planet that relates to why they would have to come back through time and focus on collecting genetic material from perhaps the last centuries on this planet where genetic material was healthy enough to collect and survive.
Yes. Yes.
And this raises the difficult issue now in 2014 going forward in the 21st century. Are we at a really true crossroads where the Earth is either going to start falling down, the whole planet, a precipice toward a fascist police state in all nations everywhere,
Right.
in which humans will be then, the non-1% will be treated as widgets to be controlled and almost to be milked for tax dollars in order to perpetuate the goals and the livelihoods of the 1%, and that is not overstating the possibility.
That's great. That's been happening.
The other possibility is that we are, instead of going down the precipice, which is standing before us geopolitically,
Yes.
that there will be maybe even divine intervention to prevent that and to get us across this terrible, treacherous gulf that we're all facing on this planet right now. Every single nation and every human being is facing this.
Correct.
That we must learn how to cherish all life.
Exactly.
We have not been taught that. We have been on a planet that, for reasons that may relate to the presences of other beings that have their own conflicting agendas, we have been encouraged to fight each other, and that death and entropy has been one of the big pressures on this planet, and something, my personal opinion, something in the divine field is trying to push humanity past this to a point where 200 and some years ago, this United States was founded with a tremendous goal to be a government of, by, and for the people.
Yes.
And for a while, it seemed to be flourishing.
Yes.
With the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and it's my understanding, and a few other people who have deeper knowledge about all of this, that the reason that Kennedy was finally assassinated by the Central Intelligence Agency is that the CIA, NSA, and those forces were mandated by a secret order under the Truman administration in 1947 when they were created,
Yes.
CIA on September 18, 1947, and the National Security Agency in 1952. They were mandated because their priority was the investigation of extraterrestrial biological entities on this planet, but no one was to know. And that is why these agencies were born without congressional oversight, no control over their budgets, and that Truman in 47, coming out of World War II, thought that this was the merciful, super patriotic act that he could do because we'll call it the power structure of the Allies at the time, who knew that we were dealing with extraterrestrials, felt
Yes.
that the world couldn't handle it, that Germany had done enough damage, and that we would go forward for at least 50 years, that was the original thought, without the world being told anything, and eventually we would finally be told the truth.
Exactly.
John F. Kennedy, 2 months before his assassination on November 22nd, 1963, made an order to the Central Intelligence Agency that he wanted to see every scrap of paper, photograph, videotape, anything and everything about extraterrestrial biological entities, and he wanted it brought to the Oval Office, and he gave them a date, and that he was killed as a consequence. And that was a straw that broke the camel's back on a long litany of reasons why the Federal Reserve, the money people, those that were involved with Cuba, there was a long list
Yes.
of why a bunch of different political interests wanted him gone, but when he demanded everything about extraterrestrials, instead that he would hold the press conference of all centuries in order to communicate at last the truth to all of humanity, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and he was dead in Dallas. Now, is that something that we should all run to the exits terrified about? Yeah, I've never felt that way. It makes me want to fight even harder for truth
Yes.
in a nation that I would like to pray that the divine field would set this nation back on the course that it
Yes,
was at
yes.
one time living of, by, and for the people, not for lobbied interest groups and elections that cost $2 billion in each election cycle. This is insane. So now, if we are at a crossroads where we're either going to go down this horrible precipice into a completely controlled planet where we will never ever be told the truth again,
Yes.
or one in which the truth itself is revolutionary and freeing, strangely enough, and that if we could, with divine help, go forward for the rest of the 21st century with everyone being told the truth, it in fact might end the energy in the wars of
Yes.
the Middle East. It might end the pressure of wars everywhere else and set us all on a brand new track in which we could finally have straightforward interaction with non-humans again on this planet, which might end up a whole new level of problems, but it also could be the beginning of a kind of liberation of humanity.
Exactly. We're going to pause for a little break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Indie music all the time. Indie 100.
Advertise your business, product, or website worldwide with Indie100.com's 8 million unique listeners. At awesome preferential rates. Call us for details at 818-381-4902. That's 818-381-4902. And again, 818-381-4902.
All genres, all indie. Indie 100.
And of course, we're back. This is Beyond the Here and Now. I'm your host, Antonia Lau. And you can find more about me and what I do on my website at onlyoneplan.com that discusses the earth changes, just what we can expect, how to prepare, and also about my work as a metaphysical researcher and psychic at inthesecretgarden.com. But again, I'm very happy to have with us today on this topic of the alien influence on and off our planet, Linda Moulton Howe, the investigative reporter on the science of the aliens and the interaction. And we were just discussing, Linda, in that last segment about the Kennedy assassination. And you want to tell us what happened over the anniversary of this just this past weekend?
Well, it was dramatic for me. And please understand, I have always been a science, medicine, and environment TV producer and reporter.
Yes.
Those are the subjects I've always been in since I graduated from Stanford University in 1968. I did films there with the Stanford Medical Center, with the Stanford Linear Accelerator, was hired to be a producer at KNBC in Los Angeles. That's where I produced documentaries and live shows, again, on science, medicine, and the environment. My career has been solidly in those subjects since I graduated in 1968, and this is 2014. I've never veered away from those subjects. It's trying to understand what was happening in Colorado, where I was director of special projects at the CBS station, with all of the bloodless, trackless animals, that I made my first step to a sheriff's office to talk with a sheriff who told me, Linda, the perpetrators of these animal mutilations are creatures from outer space.
Yes.
That's the trek. And once you have been introduced by law enforcement to what they actually think and what their evidence shows from veterinarian pathology, And you realize they are standing up to the public and saying it's satanic cult, predator, disease, and that they are lying because they have pressures on them locally and federally. They have pressures to not tell the truth.
That's correct.
You begin to realize that you are living in a country that has become corrupted
Yes.
and is full of pus, is what I think of it.
It's true.
And you can't live in a nation where that you have policies of lies and denial at every level.
Speaking
and
of
that's what I've tried to bring to bear in
Yes.
all of my work is
Yes.
the same effort that I had at Stanford University, and that is always to go to science and medicine and look
Yes.
for and try to gather hard physical evidence. And I think today, after 35 years, I have done probably 5,000 different subjects in thousands of radio, television
Yes.
programs, my books, and
Yes.
so forth on many subjects in science, environment, and medicine. And it's very important that you and the audience understand that is the context in which I have tried to get hard evidence about the what the government's own term is, extraterrestrial biological entity presence on this planet, and what the agendas might be, and what our government is so terrified about that it would continue to have policies of denial after 60 years since World War II. And it is in all of that effort,
Yes.
in trying to go to scientists on so many different levels and reporting about it in so many ways, that to me today, that there is a gigantic confusion about the agendas and what our government may know and may not know and may be speculating about, and that we are, in the work that I am doing and have done, this whole issue of John F. Kennedy having been assassinated by the Central Intelligence Agency working through the mafia and others in order to protect the nation's greatest secret,
Yes.
that extraterrestrial biological entities have been here for millennia. To say millennia is thousands of years. The United States government is only 200 and some years old.
Correct.
That means that we are dealing with government agencies that have policies of lies and denial about the presence of extraterrestrials on this planet that go back, as one Defense Intelligence Agency man told me in 1999 after he retired from 23 years of working for the Defense Intelligence Agency, and he sought me out because of information that I had in my work. And he said, Linda, one thing I can tell you, our government has proof that at least 3 competing extraterrestrial biological entities in geopolitical territorial conflicts have been terraforming and harvesting genetic material from this planet Earth for at least 270 million
Yes,
years.
that's it.
And when I said,
That's it.
Sir, how could humans have proof of something by extraterrestrials? He said, all I can tell you is we have proof. This planet has been terraformed for 270 million years.
Yes.
It's by a mixed agenda of competing geopolitical, territorial, conflicting extraterrestrial biological entities.
Yes.
And that means that the policy of lies and denial set in motion for super patriotic reasons by the Truman administration in 1947 was trying to protect, quote unquote, humanity's psyche
Yes.
from being introduced to something that was older than all known human populations. And from my point of view, I do not believe that lying and policies of denial has ever served any government at any time, eventually.
Exactly.
And that right now, this festering lie, this gigantic festering lie behind the Kennedy's assassination that we just went through the 51st anniversary about,
Yes.
that on that November 22nd, 2014, I posted an Earth Files with an interview with Jim Marrs, who is the author of Crossfire, that came out in 1989, and it was Jim Marrs' work.
Yes, I know Jim.
Interviewing Garrison and interviewing a lot of people that he put together in that particular book that was on the New York Times bestseller list for months. And in it was Jim's conclusion that the Central Intelligence Agency was the brainworks behind the assassination, working through the mafia and others.
Yes.
Now, that was 1989 to 2014. So when I did the interview with Jim Marrs, whom I have known as a colleague and a fellow journalist for more than 20 years.
Great man.
And it was on one of my every month in the last Thursday or third Thursday of the month, I do 3 hours on Coast to Coast AM, which was Clear Channel. It's now iHeartRadio's premier radio networks. And Jim, in a half hour, was one of my interviews. And it went fine. Everything was strong. And I decided that I would wait to produce my Earth Files report, in which I always do documents and all kinds of images and all kinds of cross-references. All my reports are quite in-depth, and that I would put that out on November 22nd, the actual 51st anniversary. And I loaded up that Earth Files report in collaboration with Jim Marrs. Everything was fine. I went with family to go see the brilliant Interstellar in IMAX and got back to my office at about 11:30 p.m. on November 22nd and went to check email and found several saying, "Linda, I haven't been able to access Earth Files. What is wrong?" And that began a 36-hour saga in which I find out from my server, which was in Toronto, Canada, that a worldwide attack of zombie computers had all been aimed from both hemispheres at www.earthfiles.com. And that brought down not only my server in Toronto, but the entire company that has been in business for approximately 18 years, providing hundreds of servers for many companies. They had to take down everybody because the attack on earthfiles.com, which is an attack on me, was so great. And finally, after 24 hours, an expensive switch to a what's called a Cloudflare defense against such denial of service cyber attacks, I was able to get Earth Files back up, and at the 36-hour mark, we were able to stabilize email and all the other things. It was a terrible attack.
Our entire station was knocked down. We weren't back up until Monday because of that same attack.
And what it said to me, and what it said to everybody who has been writing to me in floods of emails, the only thing that you can link to what happened on November 22nd was my posting of an earthfiles.com report that linked in depth to a document that was received by a McDonnell Douglas aerospace engineer in the mid-90s that I included in the flow of information about the reasons for the assassination. And that document, referred to as the Byrne Memo, is one of the most intriguing ever released by a whistleblower. And it has a list of the Majestic 12. It is a memo that was written by DC-1, that's the DCI, that would be the Director of Central Intelligence. That's the way the Director of the CIA has always been referred to, and that he is referring in the document to Lancer, all caps. That was the code name by the Secret Service for JFK, and that in this document that is in my November 22nd report, it said Lancer is making inquiries about our work, and must be stopped.
Ooh. Ah.
So we are living at a time where if those of us who are trying to investigate and report facts
Correct.
about areas that our government has insisted for 60 years do not even exist. The government says there are no UFOs, no extraterrestrials. So for those of us who have been trying to interview actual people with actual knowledge,
Exactly.
report about it, and that we learned that President John F. Kennedy's major demand to the Central Intelligence Agency 2 months before he was assassinated was for every scrap of paper and photograph about the presence of extraterrestrials on this planet, and that there are others who have talked with Jim Mars and many people who have investigated
Yes.
have always come around to the square, we'll call it square one reason, but the CIA did not want John F. Kennedy or the public to know the truth. And today, as we are ending 2014 and soon to be New Year's Day 2015, there are rumors circulating among some of the contacts that some of us have had for a long time, not just me,
Yes.
many others,
Yes.
that are saying that this government has on a timeline 2016 as the year of either an event that will force their hand or they will anticipate it, that 2016 will be finally the year that we will see the worldwide 3-inch headlines, "We're not alone in this universe."
Ah.
How they are going to do this, what they are going to trot out, how they are going to limit information on human abductions, animal mutilations, all kinds of other threads, that's what they have not wanted to face. So what will happen, perhaps in 2016, that will finally get out one truth? We're not alone in the universe. My suspicion is it will be confirmation of life on, let's say, Mars or Enceladus or Titan or something
Exactly.
in the solar system. It's far enough away for the firestorm of the media to get out. We're not alone. But it is far enough away that there is no possibility of repercussions. And so they will lance, it's called lancing the expectation. They will lance the whole suppressed truth about we're not alone in the universe with something at a distance, and then after that firestorm has calmed down,
Yes.
eventually we will begin to be introduced to the fact that we led this program with, that our government knows that extraterrestrial biological entities of conflicting geopolitical territorial
Correct.
have been involved with this planet for at least 270 million years.
We're going to pause for a break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Indy 100 Burbank.
With all the major changes on the Earth going on, earthquakes, sinkholes, strange sounds, birds, fish dying, all this volcanic activity, all this earthquake activity, just because it's not in your backyard right now, doesn't mean all this happening around the planet around you isn't going to affect you. Please prepare properly now. You may think the world is okay, but let me tell you, there are lots of changes for Mother Earth right now. Magnetic North is no longer where it used to be. Look deep in your research or take a look at mine at onlyoneplan.com. Learn the sequences of events, learn just what to expect, and just how you need to properly prepare for all the events coming. This is a real event, not a comet, not an asteroid, much greater and bigger. Don't let the elite and the governments prepare without you preparing as well. Yes, they have their bunkers ready. onlyoneplan.com. Stop rationalizing.
Indy 100.
And welcome back. This is, of course, Beyond the Here and Now. And the topic today has been the alien influence on the Earth and through the cosmos with my honored guest, literally Linda Moulton Howe, the investigative reporter in all things ET and off the planet and off otherworldly for many, many years with several different, like I said, accolades for her abilities, for all the research you've done. Thank you for that. Now, you mentioned something just at that last segment about tying up these things. You saw that the government has this Lance date of 2016.
Rumors that have come to several of us over the last, for me, 5 years ago. I was told by somebody who had retired from a government agency, Linda, just know that in 2016, it's on the government's timeline to have a release, at least breaking open that we're not alone in the universe. And now we are about to head into New Year's Day 2015, and I'm so curious. Antonia, do you have any psychic impressions about what might happen in 2016?
Yes, I thank you for asking, because believe it or not, with all the clients I've done and all that, in my method, I am a hard and fast skeptic, Linda, you must know. And so my studies started metaphysically years before I started doing readings for people. I was always psychic from childhood. And I figured that God's source creator wanted this gift used in the positive way, but with intellect behind it that continued this growth. And so oddly enough, I would get these pieces of information about the world, the geopolitical systems, elections, and they would all be confirmed. My work is confirmed. So, which is interesting. So here, if the person doesn't care to ask about those things, they may not get that knowledge. I've tried to put it now on the Only One Plan website so they can get it for free. But as my understanding it psychically, as we get this hit, I just did over 50 hours of research with the former CNN science reporter, Marshall Masters, over the summer, who's just published a book about those findings, and he incorporated his own. But with what I found scientifically, and I've been discussing and sharing in workshops and lectures all over the world, is literally, as we're going through these major earth changes, it's a symphony of events that the governments of the world are aware of, and that they were given a mandate by the divine or cosmic universe that they need to let these people know on earth, because they have to help as much as they can. They can't ameliorate the situation, but they have to be able to help during this critical period geophysically on our planet. Part of the geophysical changes include that that planetary system of Nibiru coming through our system as it does every 3,600 years, and her own natural normal cycle of Earth pole shift. All this happening all at once. So here we have all the powers that be and getting their ducks in a row and their governments in a row, all their bunkers, as you can hear Dr. Bill Deagle talk about. Everything is already set and ready for them to go, but they're not going to alert the population if they can help it, because the powers that be have their 500 million person mandate. So psychically, I got this information when people, Linda, were discussing 2000 and Y2K, and they were all frightened. I was given direct information from the guides, direct, and again, confirm that was 96 to 98, that we would see the major earth changes by January 2005. And Linda, you remember what happened in December 26, 2004. That was the Sumatra earthquake and tsunami, right? So that is the kind of information I've gotten all my life, from the time when it wasn't popular discussed back in the 80s. I was telling the U.S. or people about the the volcanic activity that would be going off in the U.S., and it currently is. That's normal, natural cycle of change. However, it's not just physical change, it's the spiritual change we're all going through, and the planet, as well as the physical change. Nothing on the planet, we're in 3D so far, everything is affected mentally, spiritually, and physically. I also became, oddly enough, friends with George Green and his wife, and have since those years as well, since I was on the conference cruise with Jim Mars as well as a speaker. Now, this is important because he confirmed all those agendas by the powers that be. So they don't want us to know, so they're trying to save themselves, get all their ducks in a row, and that's why you see that 215 and 216 mandate. I was given two strong signals and actually given direct information about that North Pole location You can go on my YouTube or my website, onlyoneplanet.com, and everybody can find more information. The new location of the South Pole being, Cape Town, South Africa. I coordinated. I have on YouTube a globe showing the articulated location of the new equator. And you can see all these events and changes. The benevolent ETs are trying to soften. So if it's not a 20 earthquake, we'll have a 12. And we have the powers that be trying to crank up a 6 to a 9. So we have this battle between our own factions, you're correct. But this was supposed to be in our midst so we could see it. So as we go through this new change or new paradigm after 2016, we were never, as a population, will never allow anyone to suppress or dominate or lead us astray that way ever again. So we needed to see it, so it's being revealed bit by bit. And as they help, every time Earth goes through this cycle, we have historical fact of, from the Sumerians, and you with your information about Gobekli Tepe?
Gobekli Tepe.
Gobekli Tepe. Thank you. And it's amazing because it coincides with all these changes that happen on a normal, natural basis of Earth growth. So I want the population to understand they need to be calm, stay in the calm center of the eye of any storm. They need to properly prepare. They need to stop kicking it aside. George Green mentioned that the powers that be's propaganda for all those aware ones, or so-called New Agers, they call them, they said that they wanted them to believe that if they thought about it, that they would make it or attract it. So they could get them out of the way so they wouldn't think about it. So they're trying to get all these little groups away with the Ebola, with the virus and everything else, so they can get their little number down to 500 million. And the cataclysm or the natural chaos of growth that happens, we're destroying the old parts of the old paradigm as the Earth herself is naturally growing. It just happens to be populated at the time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a catastrophe. So I'm going to suggest or say it shows that every time the Earth goes through this, through deep study, metaphysically, spiritually, and all this, it's confirmed that usually the population, yes, it is reduced, massively reduced, naturally, not with their influence, naturally reduced. And what ends up happening is the benevolent ETs always come and start her right up again with brilliant technologies, ideas, so that we can have a good push. What we didn't do was we didn't evolve spiritually with compassion and emotion for one another or with our Earth. We need oxygen to breathe and water to exist. And those are the two things we pollute all the time, let alone how poorly we take care of ourselves as a species and everyone else. So this is the time that this shall end. However, the powers that be want to use this natural cataclysm and all these planetary symphony of events to be to their benefit. But we're supposed to recognize this in awareness and move forward past it. And it shows we'll succeed. So I'm getting all those that resonate, that to show them a template of how to do so, if they want to do so, to build literally conscious, safe communities that have to come together at this time, as we always do at any other time. Earth has done this at least 82 times in Earth history. So all these changes that they're doing, and so they told them, literally the benevolent ET, you must disclose, you must tell these people, so they won't shoot, kill, harm, maim when we come down to help. Now, yes, you say correct. We have that other faction that doesn't want us to know. And so they're working on all the negative levels to keep people from opening, keep people still harsh, lacking compassion to one another and the planet itself. So I hope that wasn't too much, but just goes to show you that all this is going on, and the average person has been made to believe that just what is on the news and what they see in front of them is exactly all that's happening. And you are aware with all your work, Jim Mars, other researchers of that nature, literally, we see this huge concept of information you've brought us that shows that's not been the case. So does that clarify a little bit for you?
Well, I think out of all of that you yourself have the impression that 2016 could be a pivotal year, at least on the issue that we're not alone in the universe.
More than that we have those physical issues to contend with that we were promising on a soul level to handle, and that we do have to watch our powers that be, because they will try to mandate their own little garbage to harm the rest of us. Those we don't need to fight, we need to feel sorry for them, but as we prepare, that's the whole point. We can't just sit back. So we need to, again, move in those that resonate, that feel that they're destiny, so we can, as the rebuilding phase happens, when it's all now nice and safe to 2020 to 2025, we're going to be back on case. 2040, 2050, the vibration will be as high as it has ever been. Actually, more so on the planet in our evolutionary basis. Now to hold what you mentioned in your conference the other day, the Christed consciousness would have already hit. The second coming is actually within us. But the exact way the man we call Jesus taught, not what the religion has taught us.
Right.
The compassion. And I was guided to your piece on that just a day ago. That was amazing, of what you had seen in your documentation. Documents revealed that they had sent someone compassionate to train us 2,000 years ago.
Right.
And we killed them.
Yep, that's right. I mean, it is one of the great ironies of this planet, how a species would be manipulated into existence by extraterrestrials and end up so violent that it is always killing.
Correct. So what this change will mandate that we move forward. Finally, human nature will evolve past that need to do so. Those that don't want to, that they will be, like I said, going elsewhere, so to speak, another vibratory rate if it's the right time for them after their transition, so to speak. So for all of us, we're finally moving forward in a positive way. But you must remember, you have to tear down all the old before you can ever rebuild, which is what's happening again on the planet. Linda, I want to thank you so very much. We've got to have you on. That was amazing. I hate to end it with you now. It's been so exciting.
Thank you.
Please share your website again. Please share that website again so they can get the new release of the Alien Harvest.
Yes, it's not just my book, An Alien Harvest. It's a brand new DVD that I have done.
Perfect.
10,000 BC Gobekli Tepe and Ancient Stone Circles. Are they ET terraforming? And both the book and the DVD are available right now at my news website, earthfiles.com. Think of a reporter who files news about the Earth, earthfiles.com. And in the upper left, there is an Earth File shop, and all of my work is there.
Excellent. Linda, I want to thank you so very much. Continue on the work successfully and safely. And I want to wish the audience all the best.
Grandmother, you're all I ever wanted to uphold. Now I would never ever let you go, 'cause I'm opening and hoping we can grow.